Hello students, in previous class of this module we learned about looping statements and we also discussed how for loop can be used for repeating a set of operations. In today's class, let us learn the other two looping statements in C. Those are while loop and do while loop. So first let us start with while loop. A while loop statement in C programming repeatedly executes a target statement as long as a condition is true. That is, it repeats a set of statements when the condition is true. Once the condition becomes false, it stops repeating the execution of the statements. While loop is called as entry controlled loop as the condition is given prior to the other statements in the loop. This is the syntax of while loop. Initial value while in bracket condition to be tested. If this condition is true, then the statements which are given in the while loop block are executed. After execution of these statements, the value is incremented or decremented of loop control variable so that it reaches the end value. Once the condition becomes false, it stops repeating the execution of the statements and it comes outside the loop where it executes the statements which are given outside the loop. This is one example of while loop for printing GCC 5 times. Here we are using A as loop control variable which will track how many times a loop is executed. It is initialized to 1. Next we have while condition. As we want to print GCC 5 times, the loop should be executed 5 times, so the condition A less than or equal to 5. So for every iteration this condition is tested, and if this condition is true, only then it executes the statements inside the while loop. So what are the statements in the loop? Printf GCC, which will print GCC on the screen, and after printing for the first time it increments the value of A. So A becomes 2. When A is incremented, it goes back and it checks the condition. If the condition is true, again it enters the loop and it executes these statements. So when A is 2, the condition is true, again it goes inside, it prints GCC for the second time. Again A is incremented by 1 by using A++, A becomes 3, condition is true, again it goes inside, it executes printf statement, it prints GCC for the third time. This process continues up to A is equal to 5. 5 times GCC is printed. Once A becomes 6, when it checks this condition becomes false. That is, 6 is neither less than 5 nor it is equal to 5. So the condition becomes false. It stops executing this block of statements. In this slide, the syntax is shown in the flowchart form. Here is the initialization, then the condition is tested. If the condition is true, the statements of the loop are executed, and after executing the loop, the value is incremented or decremented. Once the condition becomes false, it will not repeat, it stops the execution of the loop and it comes out and executes the other statements which are there outside the loop. Let me take another example, that is printing numbers 1 to 10 using while loop. So here first we need to initialize the value. I is taken as the loop control variable here, which is initialized to 1. Next, we have the while condition, while I less than or equal to 10. Printf %d/n I. So at the place of %d, it prints the value which is stored in I, and /n indicates here the next number should be printed on the next line. First, when I is equal to 1, it checks the condition 1 less than or equal to 10. The condition is true. It executes printf statement where it prints the value of I, that is 1. After printing 1, next we have I++, which will increment the value of I by 1. At present, the value of I is 1. After execution of I++, I becomes 2. And then the condition is checked. 2 is less than 10. So again it enters the loop and it prints the value of I, that is 2. I is incremented, it becomes 3. So this process continues up to I is equal to 10. Here the stepwise how the values are printed are shown here. When I is equal to 1, condition is true. 1 is printed on the screen. After I++, it becomes 2. 2 is printed. I++, value of I becomes 3. 3 is printed. Like this, it prints all the numbers up to 10. After printing 10, when it executes I++, I value becomes 11. When it goes back and it checks the condition, at this time the condition becomes false because 11 is not less than 10 and nor it is equal to 10. So it stops repeating the block and it comes out of the loop. So after execution of this code, we will have the numbers 1 to 10 on the screen. If you want to print the numbers 1 to 50, in that case, the condition will be I less than or equal to 50. If you want to print the numbers from 51 to 100, then the I value, initial value of I will be 51, and here the end value we can give it as 100, I less than or equal to 100. This is how we can change the condition and the initial value according to what numbers we want to print on the screen. This is how the while loop can be used for repeating a set of statements. Next we have do while loop. Do while is an exit control loop. Here the looping condition is checked or verified at the end of the execution of all the statements which are present inside the loop. Statements within the loop get executed at least once because the condition we are checking after the execution. So at least once the statements are executed even if the condition is false. Let us see the syntax of do while loop. Initial value, do, inside the loop, statements within the loop, increment, decrement, and here the condition is tested after execution of the statements. While condition. Let us take example of printing GCC 5 times, how it can be done with the do while loop. A is initialized to 1, do, condition is not tested before we enter. First it executes printf statement, it prints GCC. After printing GCC, A is incremented. Initially, when a is equal to 1, it enters the loop, it prints GCC on the screen for the first time. A++ will increment the value of a by 1, that is, it becomes 2. And now the condition is tested. So 2 is less than 5, again it goes back and it prints GCC for the second time. After that, a++, a becomes 3, 3 is less than 5, so again it prints GCC for the third time, and this process continues up to a is equal to 5. After printing GCC for the fifth time, when a++ is executed, a value becomes 6. When it checks the condition becomes false, so it does not go back and executes the loop, it stops executing the loop. This is how GCC can be printed by using do-while loop. Suppose the initial value of a is 10. When a is 10, it goes inside the loop, GCC is printed for the first time, a++, now the value becomes 11, and now it checks the condition after executing the block of statement once. So in case of do-while loop, the statements are executed at least once, even if the condition is false. This is the syntax of do-while loop, which is shown in the flowchart form. Here we have initialization, here we have the statements of do-while loop, increment, decrement, and here we are checking the condition. When the condition is true, it goes back and repeats these statements. Once the condition becomes false, it comes outside the loop. Let us take the same example of printing numbers 1 to 10 using do-while loop. Here the I value is initialized to 1, then the statement do, then we have printf statement, printf %d/n I, which prints the value which is stored in I++, and after execution of this block we have the condition while I less than or equal to 10. Initially I is equal to 1, it enters the loop, it prints the value of I, that is 1. I++ will increment the value of I by 1, I becomes 2. Condition is tested, 2 is less than 10, so it goes back to the statement printf, it prints 2, I is incremented like this, it prints the numbers from 1 to 10. When I becomes 11, the condition becomes false and it stops execution of the loop. This is how do-while statement can be used for repeating a set of operations. This is the program to print the numbers from 1 to 10, and here we have used while loop. So let us look at the program, how it executes. First we have the comment, then #include stdio.h void main. We require only one variable, that is I of type integer. Clear the screen. Here we are not taking any value from the user, so there is no scanf statement. The I value is initialized to 1 while I less than or equal to 10. In pair of flower brackets we have the statements to be repeated, that is printf %d/n I, which prints the value of I, and the cursor moves onto the next line to print the next number. I is incremented For that we have I++, and outside the loop we have getCH statement. Let us compile it and execute. When we execute this program, on the screen we will have the numbers 1 to 10 printed on separate lines. Stepwise, if you want to check how the program executes, you can go for trace into execution. For this we can make use of the function key F7. So let me press F7. It starts from the main function. I is initialized to 1. It goes to the while statement. Condition is true. It enters the loop. It prints 1. I is incremented. It becomes 2. It goes back. It checks the condition. 2 is printed. 3 is printed. 4 is printed. Like this it continues up to I is equal to 10. When I becomes 11, it comes outside the loop where we have the statement getCH, and here we have the numbers from 1 to 10. Let us do the same program using do while loop. In case of do while loop, the condition will be after the statements. So while I less than or equal to 10 will come after the flower bracket here. So this program uses do while loop for printing the numbers 1 to 10. Let us compile it and execute. Here also you will have the same output, that is numbers from 1 to 10. Suppose the initial value of I is 11. In this case, as we discussed, in case of do while loop, the statements in the loop are executed at least once, even if the condition is false. So here we have the output 11 because the condition is tested after executing the block of statements which are given in the loop. So only do while loop is called as exit control loop and while loop is called as entry control loop. So that's all for today's class. In next class we will study some more programs on the looping statements.